Welcome back to another Zero Context Patreon Start. Advertising my Patreon content one out of context theater moment at a time. I started off the month by finishing up Hook, Line, and Sinker. Then I launched into the fourth and final installment of the Hex Hall trilogy. Wait, scratch that. It was a bonus book about Sophie's cousin. Finally, I wrapped up the month by starting in on a new book in the new series, The Maiden Ship. Thriving under pressure was in a king crab fisherman's blood. He stood beside Brendan on the Delaware and stared death in the eye more than once. But battling nature wasn't the same as taking charge of a crew, making decisions, owning up to the mistakes he would inevitably make. That was a different kind of pressure entirely, and he wasn't sure he was built for that. More specifically, he wasn't sure the crew believed he was built to lead them. Speaking from a lot of experience, a fishing vessel's team needed to have total trust in their captain. Any hesitation could cost a man his life. These assholes barely took him seriously as a human being, let alone as the one giving orders. I'm kind of on Fox's side here. The dude isn't stepping into a manager position at KFC. He's being asked to captain a crabbing boat, one of the most dangerous professions imaginable. Opal then gives his sisters a folder full of sea shanties that Henry had written down. Piper insists that Hannah should have them since she's the musical one. Hannah apparently hadn't exactly connected with her dad's memory like her sister has and is reluctant to accept the folder. Music is her thing, and the thought of her father passing down a love for music is unbearable, but she still takes the folder. However, the main thing he can think about is how much everybody makes jokes about the comparison of Fox's constant string of one-night stands and how quickly he is to turn the wheel back over to Brendan whenever he needs to use a toilet or go eat or whatever. Fox tries to laugh off those comparisons, but they hurt a little more every time he hears them. "We love you too," Brendan said, patting her on the head and earning hard eyes from his wife. Did literally nobody bother to edit this, or does one best-selling novel somehow exempt authors from all editing in the future? In the beginning, Brendan and Piper are engaged, and now it's saying that they're already married? It was friendship, and maybe that was another reason why he'd fucking pushed it earlier today, because he didn't know how to be a friend. Okay, let me ask you something, Fox. If it was Brendan crashing in your guest room and you know that he was going in there to touch himself carnally, what would you have done? Because as much as I love me some content, I think we know that Fox would have left the apartment, not as to touch Brendan's rooster. So why is it somehow different for Hannah? Oh, that's right, because she has a kitty that he'd like to be inside. And then the anger flooded in. How dare his teachers and full-grown adults sexualize him at such a young age? I'm leaving this here to highlight how completely and utterly icky that the entire "he's going to grow up to be a heartbreaker" thing is. The entire thing is nasty, and I'm not gonna lie, pedophilic in nature. If you were like, wait, is he really going on a date with a woman? Then you've clearly read enough romance novels. Well, he will be meeting a woman, but it's his mother, who is, and I quote, "she's a traveling bingo caller, goes up and down the coast running bingo nights at various churches and restrooms." What the fuck kind of job is that? When my mom looks at me, she obviously sees my father. Right before she smiles, there's a little, I don't know, it's like a flinch. A sharp-tipped spear traveled down her esophagus. "And you still come to see her. That's pretty brave." He shrugged. "I should be used to it by now. One of these times I will be." And you wonder why Fox is so messed up. Probably because his mom can't look at her own goddamn child without visibly flinching. When I get a text or phone call in front of the crew, if I even hint that I might be interested in whatever empty hookup is being thrown into my lap, they treat me like something is wrong with me. It's always been like that. The male pressure to live up to this expectation, and I don't even know when the hell it was set. I'm sorry, but he's the one who decided that this was going to be his sole personality trait. If you don't like being treated like this, then maybe you should fucking change. Fox then calls Brendan out and tells him that he can't ask that Fox captain the Delaware while simultaneously not trusting him to look after Hannah. Brendan is like, has this been weighing on you this entire time, without actually fucking apologizing? Fox then thinks that all of the people who've heard him, including Brendan and his own mother, in their belief that Fox can't possibly change, but in the same breath also agrees that he'll captain the Delaware. He decides that he has to end the relationship. He's doing this because I don't actually know. It seems like he was kind of doubling down on his decision to be with Hannah when he was on the boat, but now he's acting like those guys who don't even like him, and their shitty opinions of Fox's love life are dictating that he should never once find actual happiness, so he must break up with her. And she'd better get her butt moving because Piper, Brendan, and their 2 kids would be arriving soon to stay through New Year's, not to mention Charlene, aka Grams, would be here in the morning. I love how it's been a decade later and Piper and Hannah's shitty mother is still as absent as she had been at the start of It Happened One Summer. His name was Torrin, and he looked a couple years older than me, maybe 18 or so. Shaggy blonde hair fell over his forehead, and when he smiled at me, his teeth were just the slightest bit crooked. Much like how when Cal was first introduced, I pictured him as being this unkempt 40 to 60-year-old man, and then had to scramble when he was introduced as a love interest. When Torn was introduced, he was simply a wizard in a mirror, and I hope that I don't have to explain that I'm picturing Merlin from Disney's animated King Arthur movie. Now it seems as though he's being introduced as a love interest, so he needs to be young and hot. Ash also explains that she comes to Maya for leads on new cases. Iz knew that her mom had her contacts, but figured that it would be a bit more mystical than some middle-aged lady reading Yahoo News. Ignoring Torrin, I started the show up again. Everton confessed his love, Leslie swooned, and just as they were about to kiss, Torrin piped up, "Those two seem insipid." I shot him a look. "Shut up. I mean it, and doesn't that lad have another girl? This can really only end badly for everyone involved." In spite of myself, I smiled a little. "I guess I should get used to this kind of drama." Torrin smiled back. "Certainly scarier than staking vampires, isn't it?" "I can promise you that I'd rather deal with zombies and werewolves and vampires than have to go back to high school drama. Cat fights because Lauren is wearing the same shorts as Katie. True story, names changed." He introduces himself as Jackson, says that he's not in class because he has asthma, but rather than to put him in literally any other class, the school makes him attend gym but to sit in the bleachers. After he started offering commentary about what the other students were doing, the coach banished him forever to sit outside instead. Perhaps he's faking it, and something could be diluting his power, a counterspell or a binding charm. Did he seem odd? I thought back to Dex, to his weird formal way of talking in a strangely old-fashioned, if stylish outfit. Yeah, but I'm not sure that's magic. Define odd, because we all had that obsessed with armadillos person in our high school. In English class, before the bell rings, Adam asks Izzy for her number. Rami is like, "OMG, how are you so popular? Both Adam and Dax are totally into you." Izzy thinks Dax's interest in her is only because he can also sense something supernatural in her, but she's thrilled with the idea that Adam likes her because he's a boy and she's a pretty girl around his age. I usually play in the pep band, but I took the night off. Drums. Me having been in marching band for 3 years. I wasn't aware that was something a person could do. However, as she gets to the bathroom, she comes face to face with Mary Evans herself. She seems angrier than your standard ghost and rushes towards Izzy. A cold sensation washes over her, along with the memory of Mary whacking the science teacher upside the head with the microscope. As Mary leaves Izzy's presence, Izzy is beyond shaken by the entire thing. She says that it's not normal ghost behavior. I do not know how many times I have to tell you this, but Torn is useless more often than not. If you need advice or help with something, you can come to me and be honest and upfront. Full offense, but that would require you to actually be around, which you are not, hence her relationship with Mirror Boy. Several minutes later, Dex and I were seated in bright red vinyl booth at a place that's called itself the Dairy Queen. "What's with the misspelling?" I asked when we'd pulled up. It used to be an actual Dairy Queen, but the corporate office made them close it down after a minor rat outbreak in the kitchen, so the owners just reopened it but changed the spelling to keep from getting sued. If I had a nickel for every young adult supernatural romance with a local restaurant that had a butchered spelling of Dairy Queen, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Instead, she whipped out a glossy issue of Rockin' Girls magazine, complete with articles like What His Dog Says About His Kissing Style and Is It Wrong to Be in Love with Your Stepbrother? I had to read this, and so do you. Izzy had promised Dax that she'd go to his house after school and finally meet his Nana. So they go, and Nana is, well, a grandmother. She's literally pulling a sheet of cookies from the oven when they come in. It can't possibly get any more Nana than that. Dax and Izzy hang out until after dinner when they go to the cave Izzy thinks Mary died at. The cave is the correct place since there are signs all over the place. Inside, both of them are like, ew, can you imagine getting it on with somebody in here? Were they going for the grossest relationship ever? In the end, one of the basketball players does something to stop the cannon from going off inside and then yanks the head off from the mascot costume, but there's no actual person inside of it. As soon as the head is off, the body crumples to the floor in a heap of fabric. Ash says that she's asking Maya watch over Izzy, which I think is for the best. Ash might be a terrible mother, but hey, at least she's not leaving her emotionally vulnerable child home alone for a day or two and gets herself into further trouble. As they're going, Dex decides that right now is the perfect time to confess his love for Izzy. He's angry that things keep getting in the way of that. Izzy's like, okay, and then pulls him further into the cave to find their friends. "And you should too. Maybe you could come over, see if Leslie survives that polar bear attack." What the fuck is the show that they're watching even? Not this time. Sailor Port Talhouge is no place for a boy. Damn his orders, Mo. Turning on his heel, Dan stalked below deck and slammed the door of his cabin. Crumpling onto the bunk, he pulled his hands over his hot face. Throwing a tantrum like a 2-year-old who missed nap time is 100% going to convince everybody that you're mature enough to set off on your own. The night wore on, the tale stretching for hours, yet Elena's voice never grew hoarse. She relayed in detail how Rector had long set his mind on obtaining rule over Dikchar, how the White Stag had been no accident, and how he had imprisoned her huntsman. He'd also demanded that she take him as her royal consort in exchange for Eldon's life. After she'd refused, the High Chancellor had her secretly abducted. Elena told of her fear-filled weeks in captivity where her huntsmen were tortured before her eyes and she was mercilessly abused. Every once in a while I come across yet another story whose author doesn't know the difference between showing and telling. This is straight up telling. At this point, the author has given up on her paper-thin attempt to try and narrate this through Elena, and is straight up telling the audience this. It was barely passable in the previous chapter, but now this is fucking unbearable. I get that this is the start of the story and there's the need to tell the reader where the plot is going to be, but there are literally 1,000,001 better ways to do this than this. If you like my content, you can become a member on Patreon. You can join for free and get access to all of my free stuff. For only $1 a month, you can have access to so much, including the contents for all of this month's commentary and more. I'll see you next month, guys.